Okay, so what I had found was at Marshall's, this was in Albany, and it's about, I believe it's 10 millimeters thick. It's soft, just like a yoga mat, or really this is like a Pilates or exercise mat. And it even has yoga poses listed on the back, things that you would do on your knees. Anyways, this is meant to soften underneath your knees during your exercises. And it would also work great for wrists as well. You would place your wrists on it like that. So this was $4 at Marshall's, maybe $4.99, something like that. And so there it is. And as a matter of fact, if anybody thinks to themselves, oh, I need one of those, I'm actually making a Marshall's trip, maybe today, even tomorrow. So if you think you want one of these, let me know and I'll pick you one up while I'm there so that you don't have to go to Marshall's yourself. But anyway, so it was just kind of a cool thing that if you have problems with your knees, something like that would be really helpful. So today we're going to work on planks and lunges, and those are both difficult for a lot of us, and they both need to be very core centered exercises, because if we have a strong foundation, everything else becomes a little bit easier. I wanted to talk just kind of briefly about it in a lunge, well, and a plank really. My dogs are hyper this morning, you guys. I'm sorry, and I know they're going to bark later because somebody's going to be coming in about halfway through, and they're going to bark at that, so I just don't know what to say or do about it. But in the meantime, I'll try to keep them quiet. I don't know how that's going to work. Anyway, so what I wanted to talk about is bone stacking in your lunges and your planks. So in a lunge, you've got the knee bend and the leg back, whether you're in a high lunge or a low lunge, doesn't matter, it's the same. You've got the knee bent and the leg back. And in bone stacking, that's where your knee is right above your ankle. So you picture the lower part of your leg, you want below your knee stacked right above the ankle, and then the knee to the hip is going to be in line with itself, and then the shoulder is going to be stacked above the hip. And the reason why is because bone structure itself doesn't give us any strength, but when we stack them that way, it gives us stability. It's the muscles that give us strength, and the muscles, of course, that give us the bulk of stability as well, because obviously if we were just a skeleton and took away all our soft tissue, you all have seen a toy skeleton, that skeleton can't stand in a lunge position without support, right? Our bones are no different. Without support of our muscles and soft tissues, the bones can't do anything. But the bones still are important to, so that we're not putting excess pressure on our joints. So in my lunge, and this is so important, let me step back a little so you can see me better. In my lunge, the minute that my knee goes forward and I'm no longer stacked, well, I could sustain this lunge because I've got muscle strength. I lose stability because I'm not stacking the bones. So if you've been in my classes for a while, you know that I always say knee on top of, or, knee above the ankle, not extended beyond the toes. Because the minute I do that, I lose stability and it's negative on my joints. So you want to be sure that your positions are stacked, or that your bones are stacked. So this is same is true in our plank pose. So in plank pose, we want the wrist to be stacked. The wrist to be stacked above the elbow to be, or I'm sorry, below. Don't stack your wrist above your elbow. The wrist to be stacked below the elbow to be stacked below the shoulder. So that you might even picture a skeleton doing a plank pose, or a skeleton doing a lunge, and that will give you an idea, kind of a visual image of what I'm talking about when I'm talking about the bone stacking. Okay? Does that sound followable? Do you guys follow what I'm saying? Okay. All right. If you have any questions, just unmute yourself and ask it. So we are going to start today by preparing for what we're going to do. And let's start on our back. So come on down to your back. Knees bent, arms at your side, looking straight up. And we'll start by just relaxing a little bit. So take a couple of breaths, just regular old breaths, not changing them in any way. Feel your body on the ground. Notice which parts of your body are touching the ground. And when I say that, sometimes I even talk to myself like I feel the bottom of my feet on my yoga mat, or I might say I notice pressure on my tailbone, or whatever it is. Just acknowledge what pieces of you are touching the mat. You might also bring awareness into any other sensations in your body. It's up to you if that's comfortable for you. Okay, and then we're gonna go into some breath counting. So we're going to inhale, see if we can inhale to the count of 5, hold the breath for a moment, and then exhale to the count of 7, if you can. So it'll be inhale, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, hold for a moment, and exhale, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. See if you can do that a few times. The count can be at your own pace. Maybe you have a shorter breath, and so it's going to be more like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Or maybe it's you have a longer breath, so it'll be a much slower count. Up to you. Just follow your breath with the count. On your exhale, if you feel like you could go further than 7, then go ahead and go further than 7. Maybe you want to change your count to 5 and 10 instead of 5 and 7. On your next inhale, bring your right knee in towards your chest and extend your left leg out in front of you. Wrap both arms around your right leg and just hold the knee in while you continue that counting breath, allowing the knee and the hip to relax. Try to relax your shoulders down, and we're helping to release the psoas muscle and the low back in general. So just gentle breaths as the hips and groin area are soft and relaxed. That right knee can be pulled into your chest as much or as little as you'd like. Marley, you'll want to do this. That extended lower leg is important, so because that's what will stretch the psoas muscle that prepares us for our lunges. Marley, that left leg goes straight out in front of you. Relaxing the shoulders. One more breath. Now releasing just your left hand, we're gonna let the right hand and knee come open to the right a little bit. So you might feel a sort of pull on that inner right thigh. You can continue with your counting breath or not. Bring that knee back in, then we'll switch legs. Extending that leg down, the other knee comes in, giving it a hug in towards your chest. And we're gonna repeat on this side with those deep and full breaths, trying to let your shoulders relax and notice any other areas that are holding tension and see if you can get them to soften as well. About 2 more breaths here. And bringing your right arm down, let your left hand support your left knee, coming open towards the floor. Stretching that inner thigh. And go ahead and bring that knee in. Rest the foot down. Bring the other foot in so that knees are bent again. And we're going to go into a similar exercise, only deeper, in a half happy baby. So we're going to bring that right knee back in and see if you can take your right hand or right pointer middle finger to wrap around the big toe of the right foot. If you can't do that, see if you can grab hold of the foot or maybe of the thigh if that's where you need. And with your hand around the toe, lift the heel up toward the ceiling and let that knee come out to the right. So it's a half happy baby. Now, if you're in this position and it feels safe, extend that left leg straight out in front of you again for a deeper stretch in the psoas muscle on the left side. Psoas muscle is your hip flexors. This is what allows you to step forward and back when you walk. It's also the muscle, the only muscles that connect your upper body to your lower body. So without them, you'd be walking around in 2 halves. Well, actually, you wouldn't be walking around at all because they're the muscles that help you walk. So this is an excellent stretch. This also is a great stretch for those of us who have low back issues or even like sciatica we had talked about last week. This is a good stretch for if you have sciatica problems because that's also the nerve starts in the low back in the same general area as that psoas muscle that this stretches. Okay, then we're gonna bend that left knee again and bring the right ankle to rest on top of it. Good, and going for a little stretch there by bringing the left foot off of the ground, right hand between the legs to meet the left hand behind the left thigh. for a figure 4 or a reclining pigeon. It's known by different names depending on who's teaching the class or the day that we're teaching. You can extend that left leg up if you'd like to stretch your hamstrings or keep it down. It's up to you. Releasing your hands, left foot comes back down. Now we're going to take the left hand and place it on the left foot, or I'm sorry, right foot, left hand, right foot, right hand, right knee, and see if you can draw that leg in a little bit closer to your body. And then we're going to rock the cradle. Right knee comes out to the right, and then it comes over to the left, just like you're rocking a baby. Back to the right and to the left. At your own pace here, your whole body may rock a little bit or just the hips. Doesn't really make much of a difference. These stretches are going to be useful in our lunges as well as in our plank, because the more we can release the psoas muscles and other muscles in the hip and core area, the more strength we're going to have for our plank poses. All right, let's go ahead and bring that right foot down, and we're going to go on to happy baby on the other side. So left knee comes in, left pointer and middle finger wrap around the left big toe, or any variation that works for you there. Then the left knee comes down and out while the left heel comes up toward the ceiling. So we have a deep bend in the knee. I don't know if you can see me. We have a deep bend in the knee, kind of as deep as you can. It might be tempting to want to straighten your leg here, but keep the knee bent as much as you can. And if it feels okay, you can extend that right leg to add to the stretch, making it a bigger stretch. Take your gentle breaths, really letting those hips open, the low back release. We carry, just generally speaking, we carry so much of our stress in our hips, and we don't even realize it, but it's carried in the tissues of our groin and our hips and our buttocks. So physical, mental, emotional, all kinds of stress is carried in our hips. This posture is an excellent exercise to help release some of that stress that we're carrying in our hips. And at the end of the class, we'll come back and do a full happy baby and really do some releasing of those hips in that happy baby. All right, let's go ahead and bend the right knee, bring the left ankle to the right thigh, release that hand. And then left hand's gonna come between the legs, right hand meets the left hand behind the thigh. Again, you can extend your leg if that's comfortable to stretch your hamstrings, or you can keep it bent. Whatever works best. You might try both and decide what feels best for you this morning. Another breath or two. And let it go. All right. Now let's do a little bit just to activate our core so that we can do, I think we'll do our planks first. We're gonna activate our core just so that we know where it is this morning and know how to create strength there. Okay, so lying on our back, we're gonna just simply bring our lower back to the mat. So this might be a slight roll of your pelvis upward so that the lower back can press down onto the mat. And then we're gonna reach our arms up. In fact, we're gonna do a sort of plank toward the ceiling. So palms flat facing up. Keep the low back pressed to the mat. And we're gonna just reach the right arm up, reach it up a little bit, and then reach the left arm up. And back to the right arm reaches up, and then left arm reaches up. Can you feel that in your shoulders, kind of rounding or creating space between the shoulders? We bring the right arm up, and then the left arm up, right arm, left arm, and back and forth. Right, left. One more time, right, left. Good. Now let's bring the legs up as well. Keep that low back pressed down to the mat. Two more breaths here. Bring your knees in, give yourself a hug. And then knees come back down. Good. Arms to your side. We're just gonna do a couple of bridge lifts, and then we'll come onto our hands and knees and get started on our plank. So in our bridge lifts, I wanna see, so I'll demonstrate a bridge lift really quick. That's when we come into a little bridge and then we bring it back down. But we're gonna do this a little bit more intentionally in that we're gonna kind of roll our spine into our bridge, and then we're gonna flatten our back when we come down. So to come into the bridge, you're gonna start by lifting your pubic bone, and then the hips and low back are gonna roll off of the mat until you've got pressure in the upper low back, raising up through the thoracic spine or the middle back and to the shoulders. And then we're gonna reverse that, slowly rolling down through your vertebrae, through your spine, hips down onto the ground, low back presses into the mat, and release. Let's try it again, rolling the pubic bone up, kind of one vertebrae at a time, up, 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 up. And then one vertebrae at a time, coming back down. Pressing down into the mat. Good. And again, we're gonna go like 3 more times. Rolling up, very intentional movement. And back down. Bringing that low back into the mat. 2 more times, rolling up. Rolling down. Pressing the low back down. Let's do 1 more. Roll it up. Roll it down. Low back into the mat. I definitely feel my core activated, but just now to give it some strength, we've activated. Now let's give it some strength. Bring your hands behind your head. Intertwine your fingers, elbows wide. Okay, and we're just gonna look straight up. Try to keep your elbows wide, and we're simply going to bring our shoulder blades off of the ground. Looking up still. Elbows stay wide, shoulder blades off of the ground. And we're gonna hold for the count of 10. So 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4. If you have to let go early, go ahead and do it. 2. And release it down. Arms down to your side. Take a couple breaths. All right, I think we're ready to work on our plank pose. So come roll over and make your way to your hands and knees. So this is a spot that if you know that you don't like being on your knees, grab whatever you've chosen to be supportive of your knees and bring your knees to it. All right, now to come into that bone stacking that I talked about, your wrists are gonna be below your shoulders in a straight line. So think of shoulder, elbow, wrist. They're gonna be, now I wanna make mention though, for some people, you know, we all have a slightly different build. So for some people, particularly men, your arms may wanna be a little bit wider, but we still wanna be kind of stacked as best we can. But play around with it to see what works best for your body and where you're at today. We wanna look down and see that the inner elbows, the eye of the elbow, is facing the opposite top corner of your mat. What I mean by that is inner elbow, opposite corner. Okay. Fingertips are spread wide and facing forward. Now, if you're having wrist issues, make a fist, and that creates wrist stability. I've got a message, I wanna see what it is real quick. And I wanted to take a look and kind of see how everybody's doing anyway, so that's perfect timing. Okay, let's see. All right, I think everybody looks pretty good as far as who I can see anyway. Okay, now while you're in this position, before you go any further, I want you to activate your core. Navel up towards your spine. And then if you can, lifting up through your pelvic floor. Okay. You can relax your core for a moment there. If you need a moment break on your wrist, go ahead and take it. Otherwise, we're going to do a little move called the beast. And that is from this position with our toes curled under, we are going to lift our knees off of the ground just a little bit. The body doesn't move much, but the knees lift off of the ground. And we're going to do that up and down 10 times. So again, if you need a break on your wrist, take it whenever you want. So let's give that a try. Navel stays up towards the spine, and we lift just the knees off of the ground, and then back down. Knees off of the ground, and back down. And knees up, and down. Knees up, and down. And up, down. We've done 5, so again, take a break if you need it. We've got 5 to go. Up, down. So my hips really aren't moving. It's just the knees coming up, and I'm sure by now you've felt your core working here. 3 to go. Up, down. 2 to go. Down. Last one, we're going to hold it up. Knees off of the ground and hold for 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Down. Go ahead and rest back so that you can give your wrists a break. So the tutorial on a plank is a little bit involved because we want to make sure we're doing a plank properly. because a plank can really, especially if you do it a lot, if you maybe take a lot of exercise classes or exercise a lot on your own, or do a lot of crawling around on your feet and hands, it can really be bad for your shoulders if you're doing it incorrectly. So coming back to hands and knees, or maybe you want to just kind of watch as I talk for a minute, up to you. That's why the stacking is important, so that we're aligned properly in the shoulder girdle. In our plank, one of the most common things that happens is the shoulder blades press in toward each other, and we don't want that to happen. Our chest kind of sinks down, the shoulder blades sink in toward each other. No, we want to keep the shoulder blades spread wide, as if we're always pressing away from our hands. In fact, let's all give that a try. From your hands and knees, hands on the ground facing forward, just like we're set up. Just so that you know what not to do, squeeze your shoulder blades in toward each other, as if you're trying to hold a pencil on your back. Squeeze those shoulder blades in towards each other. That's what we don't want to do. Now create space in the shoulder blades. Press your hands away from the mat, but we do want to try to avoid coming into a cat, so don't round your spine, but press your hands away from the mat. Feel that difference? You might try it a couple times, squeezing the shoulder blades in and then spreading the shoulder blades wide. Squeezing them in, spreading them wide, squeezing, spreading. Okay, go ahead and come off of your wrist for a moment. That's a really important gesture. Does somebody have their hand raised? I think so. Hold on, guys. Or no, that's not. Okay, no, that wasn't somebody's hand. Well, while I'm here, does anybody have any questions about what I just did, or did we understand that okay? Okay. All right. So next step in our plank. Remember, again, if you have any questions, just take yourself off mute and ask it. Okay, so next step is we're just going to go ahead and try a plank and see where we're at. So for a full plank, we're going to kind of work backwards in this plank. So for a full plank, we're stacked. We're going to engage our core, navel up towards the spine and up towards the ribs. So I should say in towards the spine, up towards the ribs for our belly button. Okay? We're going to step our 1 foot back, curl the toe under, lengthen the leg. Okay? Remember, space between the shoulder blades, press the hands into the mat, and then other leg back, knees off of the ground. Lower your knees down, come out of it. Okay, so you just did that. Notice how you feel. Maybe move your wrists a little bit. We did it, but before we go further, I want to kind of backtrack a little bit. You now know whether or not you can do a full plank at all. And if you cannot, no worries at all. That's what we're going to go over right now is the variations. So the first variation is hands and knees. And you practice working on finding space in your shoulders and engaging your core. And then you can work a little bit more on knees off of the ground, just like we did earlier, because that's a really good primer for a full plank. But most of us can go a little bit further than that. And the way to do that is we keep our arms stacked below our shoulders, but we bring our knees back and our hips forward. We still want to keep that space between our shoulder blade. This, you guys, is just about, if you're doing this correctly, is just about as much core work as a full plank is. So in fact, for some of us, it's even a little bit more challenging than a full plank to hold your body weight forward. It just creates a little bit more stability from the full plank. So give that a try, play around with that. Take a breath or two. Kind of sink the hips a little bit, and it becomes really challenging. Take a break off of the wrists. Okay. Now we're gonna go back into that full plank again if you can, or if you're in a variation. What I want us all to do is notice our posture in our plank. What I mean by that, I'll show you the two most common problems we see in plank. So a plank, you have to imagine, is named after a straight piece of wood, right? We want to be pretty straight from the top of our head all the way to the bottom of our feet. So I'm going to get into a plank. Obviously, I've got bumps and stuff in my body, but for the most part, I'm pretty straight. But the problems I see most commonly is sinking hips and raised hips. Okay? We want to try to be straight, somewhere in between sinking hips and raised hips. So what I want to do when we go into our plank, and this is also true if we're in a modified plank, I can also raise my hips here, or I can sink my hips too far. Both are downright bad for the body. So let's give our plank a try and notice, see if we can notice in our body which it is that we're doing. If we're doing a straight plank, a raised hip plank, or a sunken hip plank. Let's give it a go. And I'm gonna try to watch, but I can't really see everybody. Good. When you need to come down, come back down. If you feel like you could just hold the plank for days, just come down whenever you'd like to. Okay, if you're still holding, come on back down, gently releasing your knees to the ground. Give your wrists a moment. I'm gonna unmute because I would like to hear from you guys because I can't really see you. And so I would like to hear from you, especially I can only barely see you sometimes, and then when you're on the ground in your plank, you can't hardly see at all. So I would like to hear from you guys. Does anybody want to share what they noticed in their plank? How about, was anybody at all realize that they were holding their butt high? Anybody? Okay. Okay, so yeah. Did anybody notice at all that their hips were sinking? Okay. Did anybody at all notice that their shoulder blades were pinching in towards each other? Yep. And was anybody able to notice that they were indeed bringing space between their shoulder blades? Okay, so Sally, you were able to kind of correct it. You felt them pinching, and then you were able to find the space. Excellent. Good job. Good job. Okay, so we're going to try it again. And before we do, that's the somebody coming over I told you about. So we're going to try it again, but before we do, does anybody have any questions? Okay. All right, so this time when we try it again, see if you can find space between your shoulder blades. Be aware of the shoulder situation. And then try to keep your hips level. Before we do this, if you feel your hips sinking, quiet. If you feel your hips sinking, bring your knees to the ground. Because if you feel your hips sinking, you're really putting too much compression on your lower back. And so bring your knees to the ground until you build enough strength and stability and comfort in a plank for the hips not to sink. Because you'll notice when the hips sink, the shoulder blades also want to come together, and it just is not good alignment for a plank, so knees come back to the ground. If the hips are raised, that's a little bit safer for the body, but it's not as beneficial in the plank. But if your hips are raised, notice what your shoulders feel like that, and see if you can correct. If you need to, bring your knees to the ground. So let's go ahead and try it again. Getting ourselves ready in hands and knees. Bones are stacked, wrist directly underneath the shoulders. Good. Engage the core, navel in and up. When you're ready, one leg comes straight back, the other follows. Good. Notice what you feel here. Are your hips raised up, almost like a downward dog? Are your hips sinking down toward the floor? Or are you right at the top of a push-up? Notice your shoulders. And if you're trying to hold your plank for a while, stay in proper alignment the whole time. The moment your body gets weak and doesn't want to hold it anymore, let it go. Remember to breathe. Don't hold your breath. I'm going to leave it to you to come out of it whenever you want or need. All right. Still unmuted, guys. Did anybody have any feedback there? Did that second one feel different than the first one? Were we already a little bit exhausted? Sally, you're unmuted. I see you nodding your head. Tell me what you mean by that. Oh, you know what? I said you're unmuted, but you're not. Hold on. I don't think you're unmuted. No, for some reason I have you unmuted, but I can't hear you. Let me try. No. Oh, well, I don't know. I can't hear you guys. Anyway.
There.
Oh, there you are, Sally. Now,
I was stronger the second time because I had better control of my shoulders.
That makes a huge difference, doesn't it?
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
I'm loving what we're doing today. I'm learning so much.
Oh,
I've been doing this wrong all the time.
Honestly, Sally, unless somebody has sat through the class, they usually do. So.
Thank you.
Because it's not necessarily, I shouldn't say they usually do, but it's not something that's just naturally done right. We have to kind of learn it, you know.
Right.
Plank is not a natural position for our body. In what world historically would we be in a plank? You know, it's not a natural position. So it is something that doesn't necessarily come intuitively to our body. So, with that said, I want to take one step beyond plank and go down to a chaturanga. So chaturanga dandasana, or four-limb staff, is a lower version of plank, or a bent-armed version of plank, if you're unfamiliar with it. And that is almost as if you're going through a push-up. You're lowering down in your push-up, and then you raise back up. We're not going to raise back up, but we are going to lower down. I'll give you a real quick show of chaturanga dandasana, and this is a really tough one. It takes a lot of strength. So plank into our chaturanga hold, and then we ultimately can come down and then up into a cobra. So this is a tough one. Takes a lot of arm and a lot of core strength, but it's pretty important to learn it as we go into flowing yoga. So the way that we do this one is just as the others. We start on hands and knees. We come into a full plank, but you'll notice once I'm in a full plank, I then shift forward, in the whole body shifts forward. The reason I do that is because as I lower down, I want to be able to maintain my shoulders being spaced safely. So if I didn't come forward in my plank, then my shoulders would squeeze together, just like we talked about we don't want to do. So we have to come forward to align the shoulders. So next thing we do when we are in our chaturanga is, you may not be able to notice from the side view, but our elbows come back instead of out. if I was in like a interval workout class, my elbows would come out for a push-up, but I'm in a yoga class, so my shoulders come, or my elbows come straight back for a push-up. So now if I'm doing the plank variation and I'm on my hands and knees, or my knees are back, then I can do the same exact thing. I can do the same exact thing. It just looks a little bit different. So in the hands and knees variation, my elbows start bending and my chest comes down, but my hips stay high. It's not easy, but it's still a variation. If my hips come back and I'm in that variation of plank, again, I can do the same thing, bending the elbows, chest comes down for the hold, and then all the way down. Just like in a plank, when we go through our Chaturanga Dandasana, we want to make sure that our hips aren't sinking down too much and they're not raising up too much. Now, I haven't been doing much of this type of yoga lately, so I've noticed that when I was in my Chaturanga, I felt like my hips were probably pretty high, and I'd rather have my hips high than my hips sinking because, again, compression in the spine, but I want to try to even it out too. So let's see what happens if we give it a try. Personally, if you weren't holding your plank strongly, chances are really good when you try to lower down and hold in Chaturanga, you're not going to be able to. You're probably going to just crash right down to the ground. So if that was you, if you weren't able to hold your plank pretty strong and confidently, then do the one on your knees. Okay? So let's give it a try. Hands and knees. And maybe you're going to stay on your knees. Maybe you're going to bring your knees back, or maybe you're going to come back to the full plank. From here, we shift forward, bending the elbows back as we begin to lower down so we can hover above the ground. And then when you're ready, release all the way down. Release your feet. And you could finish in a cobra pose if you'd like. And then maybe even a child's pose to finish. I'm going to come back up and see how you guys did. I'm going to unmute again. How did we do? Let's see if we could ask Karen. How did you do, Karen? I should have you unmuted. I think I do. No, I can't hear you. I don't know. There we go.
Unmute myself.
Oh, yeah. Okay. Weird. Okay, so Karen, how did you do?
I think I did okay.
Good. Good. I thought you might.
No.
Let's see who we haven't talked to. We haven't talked to, let's see, Anne, you're kind of hiding in the background. Would you want to share your experience at all? You don't have to if you don't want to.
Oh, hi. Sorry,
Hi.
I had my camera on. We got craziness going on in my house today. I'm not alone.
I do too. I do too. How did you do? Did you get a chance to try that, moving down from plank to Chaturanga Dandasana?
I did. I think I need a little work on that.
Yeah, we do. All of us do all the time. Even all the, greatest yogis still can always work on that one. It's a tough one for sure.
Yeah, I think I'm going to go back and do it again, maybe later on this evening.
Yeah,
and try it again.
Good.
Or
Good.
whenever you post it again. No rush.
Yeah, right. No big rush. And then let me check in with Barbara. Hey, Barbara, how'd you do?
I'm not sure.
It's tough when I'm not there to see you and kind of guide you. It's hard sometimes to tell in our own body what we're doing and how it worked out for us. But you know what, guys, as long as we're trying and we're giving it our best, then I think it's a win for all of us. I really do.
This is the first time I've done a plank that I really felt that it was like a plank. I guess it was. I hope so.
Good. That's amazing. I'm so happy for you. And we've been working together for like 6 years now, or 7 years or something. So that's awesome. I'm so glad to hear that, Barbara.
Oh,
See,
good.
all these things are good things do come out of this shut down.
Yeah,
Maybe it's the confidence of being in our own living room.
that's
Okay.
true.
Well, anyways, you know what, you guys, I just saw the time and we don't have time to get to our lunches today. But we can do, yeah, I know, Susan, darn. What we can do is get to our lunges on Thursday, and we'll be sure to do our lunges on Thursday. And if you're up to it, guys, I'm going to challenge you to continue practicing your planks until we meet on Thursday. Now, what I would do, for those of you like Sally, you said, I'd really like to work on my planks. So we worked on planks today. You have kind of a proper form in your mind of what to work for. I'm going to challenge you to hold that plank and notice how long you're holding it. Maybe even use a little timer. Most telephones have a stopwatch. Notice how long you're holding it and perhaps start at like 10 seconds. And it's going to feel really good because most of us can hold it for 10 seconds. And then add on 10 more, and then add on 20 more until you're up to a minute. And if you want to keep going for that challenge, you could keep doing that until you're at 2 minutes or 5 minutes, because I think, Sally, that's kind of maybe what you meant by I want to work on my plank. You can
Just doing 2 minutes inside.
Yeah, okay.
But some of the women in our group were doing it for 5. So I'd go back down, take a break, and go back up for 1 or 2.
Yeah, that's a great way to do it. Go down and come back up, but build your strength slowly. And you know what, guys? There is no reward for those who can hold a plank longer than somebody else. It's just our own strength and stability being built. I think I had read recently that yet another Guinness World Record had been set for the longest plank hold. I don't know what it's at. I just don't pay any attention. Maybe 7 hours now or some such. I don't know. And every time I see that, you know, I think it's great that people challenge themselves, but every time I see that, I just think, why? Why? I guess it's to challenge ourselves, to prove to somebody that we can do it, prove to ourselves that we can do it. But for me, I would be bored out of my mind holding a plank for 7 hours. So yeah, just remember that yoga is not a competition. And if you're feeling like it's a competition to yourself, and I truly mean this, if you're feeling like it's a competition to yourself, take a step back. Yoga is about creating peace in ourselves and awareness. The reason why it's about creating awareness is so that we can find out where we don't have peace. So if we're things like a plank, let's say, and I'm going to challenge you, dear Sally, I'm going to challenge you. You specifically wanted to work on plank and lunges. Maybe spend a minute with yourself. Ask yourself why. Why did I want to work on planks and lunges? Did I want to be able to do that 4-minute plank hold? Maybe you did, and if you did, no. If you did, ask yourself why. Why did I? And see if those are motives that are in line with who you want to be within yourself. You know what I mean? So, and that's for everybody in kind of everything that we do. Ask yourself, like, what is my motivation here? Is this in alignment with who I am, how I want to project myself to the world, how I want to serve my higher power, how I want to project myself to myself? You know what I mean? So think about that. What is my motivation here? Why am I taking yoga Tuesday and Thursday? And is that the right motive? Am I content with that motive? And there is no right or wrong answer to this, you guys. You know what I mean? When you have this self-inquiry, there's no right or wrong answers. It just brings further awareness so that we can make little corrections as we need them in our life. And that is actually a part of yoga. It's one of the limbs of yoga, one of the yamas of yoga, svadhyaya, or self-inquiry, so that we understand ourselves, know ourselves, and why we do what we do, why we are who we are. Let's go ahead and rest for just a couple moments. We're running past time, it looks like. If you need to go, you can go. Otherwise, we're going to lie down or sit up, eyes closed, and just take several breaths, letting your mind be at ease, your body be at ease. Maybe you'd like to practice a little bit of meditation, or maybe just a simple relaxation, breathing. Letting your body create that memory so that next time we go into our plank or our stretches, it'll be even easier than it was this time.